Last weekend in Japan, a new meta threat emerged from the depths of the tier list. In a meta defined by high-powered DLC characters with ridiculous range and zero-to-death threats aplenty, is one highly educated medical professional the answer we've all been waiting for? No. Absolutely not. I mean, come on, it's Dr. Mario. Just look at his recovery. But Tsumusuto did get third at my Asuma top number 9 this weekend, and that's pretty wild. So today at PGstats, let's dive deeper into how Tsumusuto took one of the game's worst characters and piloted him to top 3 at a major. In case you missed our recap of last week's majors, Tsumusuto's Dr. Mario made the most impressive run of the week by SPR with a +8, thanks to wins over Masha's Wolf, Shirayuki's Inkling, Shogun Snake, and many, many more. Like we said, we're not about to try and gaslight you into thinking that Dr. Mario is a meta answer, because he's most certainly not. But Dr. Mario is a perfect example of one of the biggest things that separates Smash Ultimate's metas from the metas of previous Smash games. Despite being clearly lower tier than the rest of the cast, characters like your Dr. Marios, your Isabels, and your Little Macs all have tools that allow them to compete in ways that characters like, say, Melee Bowser did not. Where low and bottom tiers were invalidated in the past, now they just have to deal with a lot of 4-6 matchups and a few 3-7s. It's not impossible for these characters to make big runs, but the same kind of planning that works for the top tiers isn't enough here. Playing optimally in an unfavorable matchup loses to the opponent's version of optimal. So, where do you go from there, if not straight to another top tier yourself? Thankfully, the problem of how to prepare as an underdog is one that's existed as long as competition itself, which means that others have already approached this issue for us. Basketball on Paper by Dean Oliver was one of the first books to take a deep statistical approach to basketball. Chapter 11 of this book takes on the concept of consistency, discussing how, much like Smash players, basketball teams do not perform the same every time they take the court. Rather, there's usually an average performance level these teams coalesce around. Some games are randomly bad, and some games are randomly much better. Randomly, at least from the perspective of the observer. Great teams, of course, benefit from consistency. Oliver's example was the 1995 Utah Jazz, featuring Hall of Famers John Stockton and Karl Malone back in their heyday. That team went 60-22 with this scoring distribution. If you took that team and made them unrealistically consistent with this scoring distribution instead, they'd go from a team that made the playoffs but lost in the first round and be transformed into a 79-3 behemoth, the greatest team of all time. In this metaphor, teams like the Michael Jordan Bulls of the 1990s and the Steph Curry Warriors of the past decade are characters like Rob and Steve, dominating the meta. The 95 Jazz wouldn't be Dr. Mario, they would at least have to be a high tier like, let's say, Captain Falcon or regular Mario or Ness. If we're gonna stretch this metaphor to its absolute limit, and trust me, we're going to, Dr. Mario is most like the 2007 Golden State Warriors, the last Warriors team to make the playoffs before Steph Curry and Klay Thompson became the Splash Brothers and started dominating the NBA. That team barely slipped into the playoffs after going 42-40, barely winning over half their games. That's a team that everybody wrote off in their first-round matchup against the top-seeded Dallas Mavericks, only for the Warriors to shock the world by taking them down 4-2 in the best-of-7 opening round series. Here's Oliver on this kind of situation. He writes, "Now you're an underdog. Now you don't want to be consistent because a consistent underdog loses. Now you need to find strategies that are inconsistent or risky strategies that bring your underdog team closer to being a 500 team against that favorite. In the case of the Warriors, our Dr. Mario stand-in, the element of risk that pushed them over the top was the three-point shot. Its longer range makes it less consistent, but the reward makes it worthwhile to pursue, particularly for an underdog. Over the course of a 6-game series, thanks primarily to huge shooting series from stars Baron Davis and Steven Jackson, the Warriors took 36 more three-pointers than the Mavericks and made 20 more. A 60-point swing in the Golden State's favor in a series that had an overall margin of 40 points, 631 to 591. The risky strategies Oliver presents here have clear analogies to Smash. Committing to explosive moves that can be hard punished when blocked or avoided is a high-risk, high-reward strategy similar to the three-point shot. The defensive press, in which players rush to the ball handler in attempts to force turnovers, is a high-risk strategy that can backfire, leading to easy baskets if opponents can pass around or through the press. Similarly, rushing down an opponent in the hopes that they will be unable to handle the pressure can backfire and smash if they counter you with patience and strong whiff punishing. Oliver presents one final risky strategy: reducing the number of significant interactions in the game. As Oliver writes, "What it does is limit the better team from taking full advantage of being better. A good team will win out over a bad team if you play long enough. By cutting a game down to fewer possessions, an underdog is limiting how long the favorite has to prove that it is better. In basketball, this is done by draining the shot clock and ensuring the opponent gets as few chances with the ball to impose its will as possible. In Smash, playing to the timer doesn't necessarily accomplish this, and it certainly doesn't for Dr. Mario. Instead, Dr. Mario's best way of reducing interactions is by finding smart, unexpected places to extend strings, making sure that every opener gets pushed as far as possible. First, let's establish some context. Back in April, we took a look at Spargo's reverse 3-0 against MKLeo at Collision 2022, a set where PGstats' resident huge nerd Jackie Peanuts went and tabulated the stats on an opening-by-opening level. In that set, the winner of each game won at least 17 neutral openings and an average of 22.8 openings per game. These games were characterized by safe neutral play and very few combos. Leo and Spargo did such a good job of spacing around each other that even when they did land hits, it was difficult to follow up. Tsumusuto limited interactions in a few ways. First, there was his reliance on retreating pill to put on passive damage. While Doc is too slow to combo off of the retreating pill, every little bit of damage matters with his kill power. But mostly, he reduced interactions by fiending for maximum damage and positionings off of his openings. Across his sets against Shogun and Masha, Tsumusuto cleared 5 out of 15 stocks and 5 openings or fewer. It was these kinds of explosive stocks that allowed him to come back from some devastatingly short stocks of his own. 3 of those stocks required just 3 openings. In these 2 sets, Tsumusuto needed just 6.3 openings per stock, or just 19 per game, to get to the finish line. A lot of these were viciously hard reads. Some of these were strong pressure options that left Dr. Mario safe in the aftermath, and some of it was fantastic decision-making and advantage at low and mid percents, finding extensions with grabs and mid-string dares. Either way, it was critical for Tsumusuto to make every inch into a mile, because both Shogun and Masha showed strong punish games in their sets, finding early edge guards or just using their character's strong onstage kill power to take early stocks. Shirayuki did a much better job of stifling Tsumusuto's attempts to shorten their game. Despite falling 3-0 in winter semis, you could see Shirayuki figuring things out, especially in a Game 3 that Tsumusuto snatched from the jaws of defeat. You can see Tsumusuto's game plan of turning what appear to be minimally important hits into potential death throughout the set. Here, Tsumusuto goes for a down throw tornado, knowing full well it won't KO from this part of the stage. But he recognizes that this opening, particularly after Shirayuki uses his double jump to recover high, could be the one that gets him the set. The bear to send off stage leaves Shirayuki without a double jump, and Tsumusuto perfectly moves to intercept the up B. This KO, by the way, was harder than it looks, and it didn't look particularly easy. In order to ensure that Shirayuki would remain on the right side of the tornado, he had to drop down to the right, start his tornado mash while holding left, and then mash while rising to the right to ensure that there wouldn't be any shenanigans with the stage interrupting things. The very next game, Tsumusuto hits one of his hardest multi-layered reads of the set. He opens with another retreating pill, but is close enough on hit that it's ambiguous whether or not he'll be able to follow up. Shirayuki swings to prevent a follow-up, but Tsumusuto is ready and nails the parry. Rather than taking the guaranteed up B or up air after the down tilt to put Shirayuki off stage, Tsumusuto dashes back and goes for it all. Considering Shirayuki wouldn't take another 300% damage across the next 2 stocks before dropping the game, it's fair to say that this was a critical interaction. Shirayuki would pick up a strong lead in Game 3, thanks in large part to living to nearly 150% on his second stock. Tsumusuto was still going for the hard reads, Shirayuki just didn't fall for it. This up air, designed to catch an air dodge or laggy attack, Shirayuki just dodges to the platform. This D-tilt on the platform, Tsumusuto goes for the roll and misses. Another one, same deal. With Doc's explosiveness taken away, the character doesn't bring much to the table, and Shirayuki was looking poised to get on the board until this happened. This was the opening that got Tsumusuto back into Game 3, and Even though it took another 6 hits before Shiryuki's final stock was finally deleted, every single one was tinged with the possibility of death, forcing Shiryuki to play with intense anxiety. "It was a 3-0, but it was close though," was the definition of Tsumusuto's win over Shiryuki in the winner's set. And if one stat suggested Shiryuki could turn it around in the run back, it was this. Tsumusuto required 73 openings to take down Shiryuki, and an average of just over 24 per game. This was over 5 more per game than what he needed to take down Masha and Shogun. That's a problem. Unless he's playing absolutely perfectly, Dr. Mario does not easily survive a game in which he needs to win extra neutral openings, as his recovery means each and every neutral loss he takes can spell doom. Shiryuki was able to use the information he gathered about Tsumusuto's recovery habits to great effect in the run back. Much as characters with unfavorable matchups need to employ some risky strategies to fight back, the inverse is also true. Characters in favorable matchups generally want to avoid risk, and for Shiryuki, that often manifested in playing himself on stage and not chasing Dr. Mario off stage. The weird thing is that Dr. Mario's attributes change the nature of risk-reward when it comes to edgeguards. The reversals are scary. Shiryuki found that out himself the hard way in game number 2 in the winner's set. But you've seen what Tsumusuto and Doc can do when they make it back to stage, and with that in mind, it's arguably riskier not to pressure. Shiryuki had 2 major adjustments. First, he was much more aggressive with the edgeguards, taking great advantage of Inkling's ability to drop off the ledge and threaten with a huge and quick rising back air. Second, he was much tighter in his coverage of neutral getup, taking advantage of his multi-hit D-tilt and jab to bait and punish neutral getups, extending ledge situations and giving Tsumusuto more options to screw up. These moves leave a bit of damage on the table compared to some of Inkling's other moves to punish ledge options, but the positioning was vastly more important, as Shiryuki took a number of stocks in the run back with some combination of jab or D-tilt at the ledge into bear off stage. Don't expect this to be the last we've seen of Dr. Mario. Tsumusuto has been godlike with this character since the game came out, and he doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. There's Shisho, the doc who won a regional in Kyushu, Japan back in June. He wasn't able to defend at Kowloon 2 a couple weeks back, but he finished second only to Hikaru. Not bad at all. And then there's Bacon, the United States' best representative of the Good Doctor, who pushed the character to its best US result at Pound with a 17th place finish. Whether you're trying to be the next Tsumusuto, or avoid being the next Tsumusuto's victim, there's a lot to learn from his run at Mayasuma Top number 9. Characters like Dr. Mario don't allow you to approach the game from the same kind of risk-reward structure as many other characters. And if you don't go in acknowledging that as part of Doc's game plan, on either side, you're probably going to have a bad time. One last note on this topic. We strategically avoided talking about one of Tsumusuto's streamed sets, his win over upstart Donkey Kong main Rarikusu. This is why we haven't even said that this was a solo Doc run. Rarikusu took a tense Game 1 in which both characters found early stocks, as they both often do against each other, and Tsumusuto won Game 2 in a similar fashion. After lots of thought, Tsumusuto locked in the Mii Gunner for Game 3. Despite an insanely quick second stock from Rarikusu, Tsumusuto hunkered down and was able to win after some truly tense moments of zoning. Of all the matchups to force a switch, Donkey Kong was not on the list. Resident PGstats Doc main Jackie Peanuts was shocked, and he reached out to Bacon, who listed DK as one of the 4 matchups he could consider winning for Dr. Mario, along with Kirby, Lucario, and Pichu. But consider Tsumusuto's risk-taking playstyle with Doc. Where that works really well against your more traditional top tier, it's less effective against a character like DK that can do the same thing right back to you if you're wrong. The necessity of taking risk with Dr. Mario disappears, and then you might fairly ask, why are you even playing that character? The switch to Mii Gunner to shut down the exact kind of play that helped him in his other sets was just yet another example of Tsumusuto's excellent understanding on how to leverage risk-reward in Smash, even if it wasn't the way we're used to from him. Dr. Mario shocked the world. Who knows what's going to happen next week? One thing is for sure, if you want to keep up with all the latest Smash news and analysis, you better hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. My name is Last, and I do so hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I'll see you next time.